Listen in for some positivity and good times. The views and opinions of our guests may not necessarily reflect those of the host or the Vibes Broadcast Network. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I have here Mr. Nate Dukes. And he and I are going to have a nice conversation because we found out we have some things in common. But first, let's find out about you. So tell us where you're from and all those good things.
Yeah, my name is Nate Dukes. First of all, I'm so excited to be on this podcast.
Thank
I
you.
love what you're doing. I love the theme, and I've gotten to listen to a lot of it. This is a great space for some really great conversations to happen. But my name is Nate Dukes. I live in Youngstown, Ohio. I've recently written a book that helps people who feel stuck, who feel like they've experienced some failure. If you struggle with self-confidence, this is going to be a great conversation with you. If you feel like there's more inside of you, or there's another level that you want to go to, I can't wait to have this conversation because you're really going to benefit from it.
Oh, I spent my honeymoon in Mansfield.
Okay, yeah. So it's not too far away. That's one crazy place to spend a honeymoon.
Yeah, when we got there, the first place we went, there was an Olive Garden, and the waitress came up and it's like, "Oh, how are y'all? Doing pretty good. This is our honeymoon." She goes, "Well, where are y'all from?" I said, "I'm from Texas." She goes, "Why in the world would you come to Mansfield?" Well, we spent the evening at the Ohio State Reformatory with the Ghost
y'all
Hunters.
went. Yeah, I know exactly where you guys went. Yeah.
So, like I said, you and I have some things in common.
Yeah, sure do.
One of them, of course, was a drug problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of like to get in that conversation, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so growing up, we were the poor family. We didn't have a whole lot. My parents, I don't blame them for anything. They were really kids trying to raise kids, and they had a lot of broken mindsets around money, around drugs and alcohol, and those broken mindsets were passed down to us kids. And I remember one Christmas, my mom coming up to us and she said, "Hey, don't plan on having a whole lot of presents underneath the tree this year." And as a kid, that's never anything that you really want to hear. But there was this really great church who came and they bought my mom Christmas presents, and we had this amazing Christmas. But I always had this understanding that this wasn't from mom and dad. This is because we got a handout. And so as I grew up, I turned 18, and I really wanted to escape the chaos of my childhood. I always had this idea of God. He was like this guy who was watching and waiting for me to mess up. And as soon as I made a mistake, he was going to punish me. But when I went away to college at age 18, I felt like nobody's watching me for the first time in my life. And instead of trying to better myself, I found myself trying to use drugs and alcohol to escape the pain that was on the inside. And so all of a sudden, what started out as a weekend experience turned into now it's bleeding into the days of the week, and it's competing with me going to class and studying. And so I started taking prescription ADD medication, and now I felt like I was Superman and hyper focused. And what turned out as a once in a while experimentation with drugs and alcohol turned into a full-blown drug addiction. And so at age 21 years old, I'd gone to school for 4 years at that point, and I come nowhere close to actually graduating. And so I had to move back in with my mom and dad. And I don't know if you've ever done the walk of shame before, but that's the real walk of shame is moving in with mom and dad again. And through a series of events, I was actually able to, I was approached by a friend of mine who wanted to open up a business. He wanted to open a bar and restaurant in downtown Youngstown, Ohio. And he asked me if I wanted to be a part of it. And now this had touched on the entrepreneur, the person who wanted to chase success, who wanted to escape the poverty that I grew up in. But it also touched on this party lifestyle that I had fallen in love with. And so we took what was a failing business in the beginning, and over the course of 2 years, actually turned it into something that was very successful. Now, all of a sudden, I had access to more money than I had ever seen in my entire life. So this wasn't like a life-changing amount of money, but for me, you got to understand, being the poor kid, it felt like the world. Yeah. And so I had a nice car. I had a really beautiful apartment in downtown with lofted ceilings. I was in social settings that I had never had access to before. And I thought that all of this stuff, all of these things, all of this success was going to finally make me happy. And I found out that as soon as I got all of it, I was still just as empty on the inside. And all of a sudden the drug addiction ramped up and I started using more and more and more. And I also started going to casinos and gambling. And listen, man, I'll tell you, I'm the classic definition of a bad gambler. Okay. I just keep getting beat and coming back for more. And it took about a year, but I ended up gambling everything that I personally owned away because I'm dealing with a drug and gambling addiction. And my bank accounts, they were on empty, but the business bank accounts, they were full. And so I started siphoning and taking money from the business bank accounts. And I guess I thought to myself in that point, like, well, geez, I'm the business owner. Isn't this my money anyways? Well, here's the deal. You can't take business money and use it for personal investments. That's called embezzlement. And so I was embezzling money from my own company, and I started taking it to fuel my drug and gambling addiction. And we had about 20 employees who worked for us, and it was payday. And my business partner came to me and he said, Nate, it's time to cut the checks for everybody this week. And I just came clean in that moment. I said, listen, if we write these checks, there's not going to be enough money in the accounts to cover them. And you could see he was confused. He didn't really understand what was going on. He was a little frustrated. And then everything started to catch up to him at once. He realized that I had taken the payroll money the night before and I had gambled it all away. And so these were people who worked really hard, who had to put food on their table. And he gave me an ultimatum at that moment. He said, Nate, you can sign this business over to me and walk away free and clear, or I'm going to get lawyers involved and I'm going to press charges. And so at age 26, I walked away of what essentially was my life's work at that point. And I moved back in with my mom and dad, and my identity was wrapped up in being a business owner. When I didn't have that anymore, I didn't know who I was. And now I'm really using drugs to numb the pain that's on the inside. And I can hardly hold down a job. I would get a job at a local restaurant as a server. I'd end up stealing from the cash register because that's all I knew at the time. I get caught and I get fired. That happened 3 different times. The last time it happened, I was walking around my parents' apartment complex. It was 3 a.m. I'd just taken a handful of pills and I was walking around different vehicles, just trying to see if any of them were unlocked, to see if I could find something that I could take or that I could sell, anything I get my hands on to fuel the addiction that I was dealing with. And I ended up opening up the console to a 1999 Buick LeSabre, the center console. I reached my hands in and I pulled out the spare keys to the car, because apparently that's where you keep the spare keys to a 99 Buick LeSabre. And in that moment, I thought to myself, man, maybe this is a chance to get away. Maybe this is a chance to start my life over. And I didn't wake up in that moment thinking today's the day that I'm going to steal a car. But when you find yourself in the wrong place with the wrong headspace, you really never know what is possible. And so I found myself thinking, man, if I could just run away and start over, everything will be okay. But I don't know about you, but if you've ever tried to outrun your problems, it always seems like they run just as fast as we do, because it's not always the condition of our life that's the issue. Oftentimes it's us. And so I ended up packing 5 garbage bags of clothes in the back of this stolen car. And I knew that I had a friend in Houston, Texas, of all places. And he said, Nate, if you ever find your way down here, I'll help you start your life over. Now, he had no idea that I was about to steal this car. Frankly, I didn't know that I was about to. But I made it about halfway. I made it right outside of a small town, right outside of Nashville, Tennessee. There's a small town called Ashland City. And I had pulled into a gas station there, and I just wanted to get some sleep, man. I'd been up for 3 days at this point. And I finally rested my head. I leaned back and I was sleeping, and I was woken up at 9 a.m. to 3 really loud bangs on the driver's side window. And the door swung open. A stranger's hand reached in, pulled me out, put me on the ground, put me in handcuffs, and sat me in the back of a cop car. And the weight of every decision that I had made up to that point sat on my chest like a ton of bricks. And this thought kept replaying over and over and over in my brain. Is the same thought that teachers told me, is the same thought that ex-girlfriends had said to me. But it was oftentimes the loudest voices are the ones that are inside of our own head. And it kept saying, you'll never change. This is who you are. This is your life now. And I don't know if you've ever experienced that, or there's something in your life right now that you feel like, man, this is just who I am. I'll never be able to change it. My message is pretty simple today, is that you can change and you can decide to change today, but there's some work that you have to do. And so they ended up taking me to Cheatham County Jail, where I spent 6 months of my life. And so it was a pod style facility. So I shared the pod with 16 other guys. And so there were 8 bunk beds, there were 4 TVs, there were 2 toilets, 1 TV, but there were 0 windows. And the only opportunity that we got to get out was once a month. They offered something called a church service. Now, listen, I wasn't interested in going to church, but man, I was interested in getting out of that pod for a little while. And so we walked down this long hallway, and off to the left-hand side, there was a cinder block room where 16 chairs were set up, and we all filed in one by one. And as we sat down, this really, really, really old guy came in, and he started tuning up a really, really, really old guitar. And he looked at us and he said, "Fellas, the only difference between me and you is that I never got caught." And he starts to sing the song Amazing Grace. And it goes, "Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see." And I looked around the room and I saw 16 guys with tears streaming down their face. And they were weeping and they were crying. And listen, this was not pretty. They were ugly crying. They were like white girl drunk crying. Okay. But it's hard for me to explain in this moment because I wasn't worried about my past, the things that I had done wrong. I wasn't worried about my future, how I was going to get out of there. But I had this overwhelming sense of peace in that moment. And the weight of all of my decisions really started to lift off of my chest. And I just knew that, man, I want to change. This is not who I want to be anymore. And so when I got out of jail, they charged me with a felony, theft over $1,000, because you're not allowed to drive and steal cars and drive them across the country. But when I came home, I really got obsessed with, man, what do I have to do to change? And I got a hold of a John Maxwell book that said, if you want your world to change, you've got to be the one that changes first. And even though I was a messy person, I got around some people who were willing to get messy with me. And I found a mentor, and I really started to go through a process of change. And several years, like we fast forward several years, my life looks nothing like what it used to. I just got married last year, and me and my wife, we're working on buying our second investment property. I've sat on the board of a nonprofit for underprivileged youth. I get to lead hundreds of volunteers at my local church. But for the last 18 months, I've been working on a project. It's a book that encompasses my story, but also the principles that I used to start from the bottom, to create my own comeback and prove those negative voices wrong. And so now I get to help other people who feel stuck, who have experienced failure. And so I'm so thankful that who I was is not who I am today.
So you know what grace is?
I'm very familiar with it.
It's God's riches at Christ's expense.
That's right. Come on, man.
But
And some people, they'll call it luck or they'll call it karma.
Right.
And I just choose to believe that God's grace is on my life, and it is leading me and it is guiding me. And I'm so thankful for it, because when I was in control, man, I just found a way to mess it up. And so finally I have surrendered a lot of that control, and there's a lot of freedom in surrender.
Well, I don't like to take anybody's steam away, and especially talk about myself. But if I could kind of tell you my background.
Please do.
About the age of 8, I was molested.
Wow.
And when I got into a little older in school, mainly high school, that's kind of when I lost my identity, because I got picked on pretty bad and attempted suicide several times. At age 12, I started drinking. I wanted to, I guess, look tough and fit in. And that led to smoking marijuana. And that wasn't enough. Then there was, I smoked tar heroin. Then there was the acid and, all kinds of pills and other things. It'd be probably quicker for me to tell you what I haven't tried.
I know that's right.
and I discovered crack. And when I discovered crack, I was like, oh
It
man,
was on.
it was on. And it got to the point where that wasn't even satisfying enough, and I just got more into drinking, and got married at age 19. I had my first child at um, age 22, and then we had two more kids after that, and the drinking just got way out of hand.
Yeah.
Well, I ended up going to church, and it's funny because there was a guy who used to be a bandito, and I was working for an exterminating company at the time. Went to his house and was supposed to do a termite inspection, and we got into talking, and I was checking out his bikes and his tattoos and all that kind of stuff. And then he started telling me about Jesus,
Mm.
and then he invited me to church. And I'm like, man, I'd go, but I don't have a vehicle to go. And he says, we'll pick you up. And
That's
sure
right.
enough, he showed up at my house that Sunday, and we went to church. I ended up getting saved, and then I got into ministering, and I preached for about 5 years.
Wow, that's incredible, man.
Well, I you think that was the the pinnacle, but I ended up having a falling out with my preacher,
Mm.
and then I turned from God, and I was going to rebel. I ended up sleeping with a married woman, and I was
Wow.
still married. And then I got into the drinking again, and it was even worse. My little brother committed suicide, and my father committed suicide, and then one of my best friends committed suicide, and that was all within a 3-year span, and
Wow.
it just made it worse. And then I, I'd always smoked crack. I'd never snorted cocaine, and then I switched to snorting it, and man, it was like taking the happiest moment of your life, multiplying it by 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
But that lasted about 15 minutes,
I
and
know that's right.
then it was a struggle to try to keep up with that. And as well as I do, you can't.
Yep.
And my I ended up having a heart attack. Mind you, I was 36 years old when I had my heart attack.
Wow.
And while I'm in the hospital, my wife is making plans to run off with a younger guy. And sure enough, she did. And so I'm on my own and had to make a decision. And I got cleaned up. I ended up getting custody of my kids
Come
because,
on.
oh yeah, my ex-wife. She was awful. And struggled with alcohol again for a little bit, but watching my boys and realizing, I had to be an example for them, and for them to succeed, I needed to change. And
Mm.
from that point forward, I gave up the drinking, and gave up all the drugs and everything. And even though I still have some health issues, I feel better than I have in a long, long time.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. I'll give it back to
It's a
you.
powerful story, man. It sounds like you've been through a lot. You've experienced some pain. And that's oftentimes why we revert to using substances, is to cover up the pain
Mm-hmm.
that's on the inside. And so I'm a big supporter of people doing the personal work. So I talk a lot about success and creating a comeback and becoming the best version of yourself. Well, in order for a lot of that to happen, I need to not so much focus on my outside world, but
Mm-hmm.
I need to start taking a look on the inside world and
Exactly.
healing from that and letting some of these traumas come to the surface. And oftentimes that gets more uglier than it does prettier. And so kudos to you, man. Props to you for being willing to face some of because there's a lot of fear wrapped around doing this work. But good for you for saying, I'm willing to face that fear and be uncomfortable. Tim Ferriss says that everything we want in life is on the other side of an uncomfortable conversation. And sometimes those conversations, they need to happen with ourselves first. And so super proud of you, man. Powerful story.
Well, my Saturdays and Sundays, especially, watching football, I had to have a beer in my hand, or
Yeah.
liquor or something. And to go from being used to doing that every weekend to saying, okay, now I have to enjoy the things that I like without being drunk. That was hard. It
Yeah.
was very, very hard.
Yeah.
But if you surrender yourself to the drugs and alcohol, you're not only destroying yourself but the people around you.
Yeah.
So, like I said, to be an example to my kids, I had to be better. And thank God, because I went 10 years single, and then finally I met my current wife and found out we had a lot in common, and she's really helped to reshape my life as well. But in that, you said that you have to look on the inside. I had forgotten
Yeah.
who I was,
Mm.
and I had to discover that before I could get into another relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And once it's like, this is what I like, this is who I am, and then somebody could love me, but I had to love myself first. And
Yeah, that's so
it's
important.
hard.
And I think sometimes that we look at ourselves and our past mistakes, everything that we've done wrong, and we say, how could I ever love myself?
Mm-hmm.
I've made so many mistakes. And so for me, part of my healing journey was actually sitting down with three different versions of myself. I had to sit down with past Nate, I had to sit down with present Nate, and then future Nate. And this sounds a little woo-woo and a little out there, but man, it was so powerful for me to actually visualize having a conversation with me, because when you don't like yourself, I don't know if you've ever had like a friend who talks behind your back and is more like a frenemy than they are an actual friend. But when you don't like you, it's like spending all day with a frenemy, and you just beat yourself up and you just come down on yourself. And I mean, I just want to give somebody permission now to take it easy on yourself. And the things that you've said to yourself have been so mean and horrible and terrible. And listen, man, just take a moment to give yourself a break, because if you want, you can always go back to beating yourself up. But just take a minute, and what could your life look like if you looked at your past self and every mistake you made and everything you've done wrong and said, I know you messed up, but I still love you and I forgive you. And when I did that, it was actually a journey of doing it time and time again, of reinforcing this forgiveness that I was constantly giving to myself. It's all of a sudden the relationship started to repair with me, because the most important relationship in my life is my relationship with God. But
Mm-hmm.
second to that, man, I have to have a good relationship with me. And so I forgave my old self. And then I looked at present Nate, and I said, I know that you've made some changes in your life that nobody can see yet. Nobody believes in you because they only know a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. And you can't
Mm-hmm.
really blame them yet. But I started to encourage myself. I said, keep moving forward. You can do this. I believe in you. Who you were is not who you are. And I really started to become my own coach. And then I looked at future Nate, and I said, whatever it takes to give you the life that you deserve, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to start from the bottom. I'm willing to build my life back brick by brick. I'm willing to make amends. I'm willing to do the work. I'm willing to have a vision for my future, because in the only way that I can have that life, if I start making the decisions today to get there.
The funny thing is, what resonated with me was my youngest son. I was that person that always beating myself up, and I was constantly asking my children for forgiveness. And one day, my youngest son, he looked at me and he says, Dad, you need to stop doing that. He
Yeah.
said, we have forgiven you. You have to basically forgive yourself.
Yeah.
And that really stuck in my head. I was an awful dad, but I'm not that person anymore. And I guess that's the hardest part, is just finally saying, you know what, I forgive myself. If other
Well,
people can do it, why not
it's
myself?
not easy. It's not, but it is worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It's so worth it. And unforgiveness is a prison that we will keep ourselves locked in. And when you finally choose to forgive yourself, it's like you're setting yourself free from every mistake that you've made. And I just want to encourage somebody out there, if you're feeling stuck and beat up and beat down, man, just think about what your life could look like if you loved you. If you really loved who you were and you forgave yourself and you showed up for yourself every single day.
You can't expect other people to love you if you don't even love you.
So powerful.
Yeah. So you've written a book,
Yeah.
and so I want to know a little bit more about the book.
Yeah, so they say a book is a good book is the conversation that you have over and over and over again. And so one of the really cool things that I get to do is help people who are in similar situations that I were, who want to break free from the chains that have been holding them down, but they also feel like, man, there's more inside of me. And so the book is called You'll Never Change, Create Your Comeback, and Prove Them Wrong. And it is jam packed with my story, but also the principles that I used to get unstuck, to get to where I'm at today. So I don't believe that any of us need any more handouts. I don't know if you've ever given anybody $100 for their electric bill. I've been on both sides of it. I've given, but I've also received it too. And I'll tell you, every time that I got that money, it didn't fix my problems. It
Right.
only put a Band-Aid on a bigger issue that I had. And so I don't believe that we need any more handouts. I believe that we need to be inspired and resourced and taught how to make new choices. And so this book is jam-packed with information to help you create a vision for your future. Maybe you've never done that before. Maybe there's some dreams that have been locked away for a really long time because you've been helping somebody else create their vision for their life.
Mm-hmm.
But until we take control of our life, someone will always be there to dictate it for us. And so this is going to help you take control of your life, create a vision, start making some new decisions that line up with that. It's also going to help you get around in an environment that is going to be conducive for you to grow. If a plant isn't doing well, if it's not thriving, if it's wilted, if it's falling over, we don't look at that plant and say, there's something wrong with you. You've got to get it together. If you could just fix your, no, what we do is we transplant that flower. We put it into a new environment where it can grow deep roots. We give it sunshine and water, and we watch as it begins to bloom. So this book is going to help you get into the right environment where you can start to grow as an individual. And you're going to look back and say, man, a year, 2 years from now, I don't know how I got here, but I'm so thankful that I did. And people will look at you and say, how did you do it? That's the big thing that I get all the time. Nate, how did you make your comeback? And so this book answers a lot of those questions of, hey, how do I make my own comeback?
And when I was married to my first wife, I had just totally lost myself, and I was living for her what she wanted, and I was always doing for other folks. And God teaches us you need to take care of your own house before you start to help other
That's
folks.
so good.
And so I had to, but it took me so long to get to that point. Once I finally got to that point, that's the only way that I changed. And the weird thing is, it took me becoming disabled before I realized what I really wanted to do.
Wow.
So I've been on disability for 2 years now, and I got in. I'd been podcasting before, and I told you before we started, all of it was paranormal. And then I
Yeah.
started meeting all these people like you, that had a message to give. This world's already full of enough negativity. It was time to bring something positive in. And I guess that kind of sprung from me doing Instagram videos. I would do one every morning, some kind of devotion and affirmations. And, when you do it for so long, he's kind of like, why am I doing this?
Sure.
And then I think God kind of gave me that little attaboy when I got a message one day and somebody was like, thank you so much for the
Mm,
message because I needed to hear it. And then it was, even if I help one person in this life, one
yeah.
person, then I've accomplished something. But we want to spread this message out to as many people as we can
Yeah.
because we want some positivity back in this, especially in this country. Everybody wants to be a victim.
Mm,
They're bringing so much negativity. There's so much division. It's time to come together.
yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, for me, things changed when I started to look at my life from a different perspective
Hmm.
of instead of life as problems, looking at the problems that I have give me an opportunity to grow. And so I became thankful for my life conditions and my life situation. And before you write me off as, oh, this is another gratitude list, we've all done gratitude before, just hear me out. Gratitude reminds us that what we have is enough, but more importantly, that who we are is enough. And so I have really done a deep dive in how to cultivate gratitude. That doesn't mean that I don't want my dreams to come true, because I do. I want to hustle and I want to work hard and I want to achieve things, but I also want to be thankful along the way. I'm a big John Maxwell guy, but he says it's in this life, it's not about what you can achieve, but it's about who you become. And so I don't want to get to the top of the mountain at the expense of ruining every personal relationship along the way. So I want to begin to be grateful for who I am and what I have, because it really does. You know, it's hard to be angry and grateful at the same time. It's hard to be disappointed in yourself and grateful at the same time. And so I choose every single day to wake up, and even when I don't want to, even when it doesn't feel good, even doesn't feel like it, I choose to cultivate gratitude, because that's the type of human being that I want to be.
Gratitude changes attitude. That's
Mm,
been my motto. You, and you also have to say, yeah, there's problems in this world, but what am I doing to change those things? Am I contributing to the problem, or am I trying to solve the problem? And that's the point of the podcast, is to try to do my part. And your story is amazing. You know, you could have easily been that guy that just, like my uncle. My uncle, he was kind of the same way, but he spent the rest of his life in prison.
hmm
He died in prison.
Wow.
But you chose to change things. And even if nobody else believes in you, as long as you believe in you and you have God on your side, you can do anything.
Well, and the cool thing too is that anybody is capable of doing this.
Yes.
I don't believe that some people are luckier than other people or they're smarter, because how many people do we know less smart than us that are doing way better than we are? Okay. It's so true, because it has nothing to do with how much money I have or if I'm a good person. I think what it comes down to is the choices that we make. And there's
Mm-hmm.
so much power in the decisions. Contrary to popular belief, what we do every day, man, it matters so much. And so I want to take some intentionality and apply that to my daily decisions of who I spend my time with, what do I listen to, what kind of influences am I putting inside of my body, how am I eating, what's my nutrition, like all of these things. I want to make sure that they are helping me instead of hurting me. And the cool thing about making new decisions is that you can just decide today I'm going to make new decisions. I'm going to start doing things differently today. There's no magic formula. I know we always say, well, I'll wait till Monday to do it, or as
Yeah.
soon as you can just start now. You can just say today, now I'm making new decisions. And so I want to encourage you right now, if you're listening to this, here's the permission that you need to start making some new choices. You want a new life? Make new decisions. You want your world to change? You've got to change first. And so I have really taken control and ownership of the decisions that I make. My world is a reflection of every choice that I make. And so I just want to encourage you, take control of your life by taking control of your decisions.
Yeah. How many times, especially like when I was starting to diet, I'd say, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to get through this weekend and I'll do it on Monday. Monday
Yeah.
is a good day to start. No, you start right then and there. Even if you had, a 12 pack of donuts for breakfast that morning, you just go ahead and start.
Yeah. It's
You got
super
to,
powerful.
right.
Well, and when you have a vision for your future, and you have something that you're dreaming for, something that you're going after, and maybe you've never created a vision for your life, but if you want to go fly on an airplane right now, you can go to the airport and say, hey, I would like one ticket, please. And they'll sell you a ticket, but is it anywhere that you actually want to go?
Mm-hmm.
So until you create a vision for your life that is massive, that is big, and I'm not just saying, hey, what do you want? Because when you ask people that question, what do you want your life to look like? They give you a very generic answer. It's because they really haven't thought about this, and that's okay. I didn't for a long time either. But they'll say things like, I just want to be happy. I just want my kids to be taken care of. I just want to do all right for myself. And while there's fundamentally nothing wrong with that, it is not specific enough for us to move towards it. It's very subjective. So I want to get crystal clear on the vision that I want for my life. What kind of personal relationships do I want to have? What kind of impact do I want to make? How much money do I want to have? Who do I want to influence? These are all questions that I begin to ask myself to create a vision for my future. And once I have that so clear, then I can see it without having to actually see it. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
I can visualize it. Once I do that, I add in my decisions. I start making new choices that move me closer towards that vision. And then here's the hardest part. Once you have a vision, you're making the right decisions. You have to multiply all of that by time. And time is the hardest thing to let pass. The worst four-letter word we're ever going to hear is wait. W-A-I-T, wait. And I just want to encourage you, if you're making the right decisions and you have a vision for your future and you're like stuck and you feel like, man, my life isn't changing, add some time to that. Little decisions put over a long period of time make massive results. And so giving up never got you anywhere. So you are not going to give up this time. You are not going to choose to let failure ruin you and overcome you. You're going to continue to move forward, push through, become the best version of you, and giving up won't get you anywhere that you want to go. And so once you allow time to set in, that's actually how you create a comeback. So you need vision, you add your decisions, you multiply it by time, and by the end of all of that, you are in a completely different place in life.
You know, one of the hardest parts that go along with that is, like you say, you have to choose who you hang out with. And there's people that I've known for, 30, 40 years that I call brother, but now I have to love them from afar. I mean, I still talk to them from time to time, but I don't hang out with them because they're still doing the drinking and, you know, whoring around and all that kind of stuff. And I can't
Yes.
be that.
Psychologists will tell you that you are the average. You'll make the average decisions of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. Science will tell us that you will make the average amount of money of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And so if I understand that principle to be true, I have to take some personal responsibility of what were the 5 who were the 5 people that I just texted? Who am I allowing to influence me in my life? And the group of people that when you get around, you become a different person. You don't like who you are. You know that they gossip too much, or they have a negative mindset, or that their outlook on life is so poor. Like, getting around them is not serving you. And so when I start to talk about stuff like this, people, they get a little worried. They say, Nate, are you telling me I have to give up on people? I have to walk away from somebody?
You have to
Well,
walk away sometimes.
for some of you, especially if you're at the beginning stages, yeah, you do need to walk away from that toxic relationship. You need to walk away from that person that is pulling you away and pulling you down from the soul, the being that you were always created to be. You were not created to be miserable, to be upset, to be frustrated with life, to have resentments. You were not created for that. You were created for an abundant life where you contribute and you find fulfillment. But the people around you, whether you understand it or not, they are constantly influencing us. We are always influenced by the people that we're surrounded with. So I want to be around people who are going to call me to a higher standard, people who love me enough to tell me the truth, people who have goals and dreams that are scary to me, that are like, I don't know how that's going to happen, but man, that's exciting. And so what I found is that when I limit my time with the people who aren't going in the direction that I want to go, it actually frees me up. And maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, Nate, I don't know any of those people right now. There's nobody in my life who I actually want to be around. We've got to begin to limit your time. If your hands are full, you can't carry anything.
Right.
So we need to start to let go of some stuff. And then all of a sudden our hands are open to receive new people into our life.
You know, Elon Musk is moving to Texas. Maybe I need to go hang out with him.
Yeah, baby, come on.
Well, it's true. I've gotten around people that have visions. Even the success that they have achieved, they still have higher visions that they want to get to. And so I want to be on that journey as well. And my friend Brad, he's an architect, and he's fixing to have a pretty good sized business. And I talked to him the other day, and he says, I want you to come on this journey. I want you to be successful, not necessarily be with his company, but he wants me to achieve the things that I want to. That that's who you need to hang out with.
Oh, absolutely. You want to be around people who see something inside of you that you don't see yet.
Hmm.
And get a mentor in your life, and someone who's earned your trust, someone who's earned the right to speak into your life. And a good mentor will always take you places that maybe you don't want to go,
Hmm.
but you desperately need to go. And so I want to make sure that when I let someone speak into my life, I actually take their advice. You
Hmm.
ever gotten around somebody who, like, man, I would love to trade places with them, and then they give you some really great sound advice and you never take it? That's a waste of their time, and it's also a waste of your time. And so I want to make sure that when I have someone that I trust that has a more than what I have now, that I would be willing to trade places with, I always say never take advice from someone that you wouldn't swap places with, because I don't know if y'all ever have any broke uncles who like love to give financial advice at the barbecue, but I'm sorry, Unc. Like I know that cryptocurrency is hot right now, and I know that there's ways to invest. I just can't stand to take advice from you because you've never gotten it right.
Hmm.
So I need people who've done it, who've gone before me, and who can show me how to do it the correct way. And so I want people who I'm willing to trade places with to speak into my life.
Yeah. I want to do things the right way. I'm ready to do it. I just got to find that person who's doing basically the same thing that I'm doing, and
Yes.
how to do it correctly. Yeah. And if you don't make mistakes, then you're not trying.
Amen.
So be prepared. I mean, that's just part of life. You're going to make mistakes, but
Well,
learn from them.
they in Silicon Valley, their like theme in the tech world is fail fast. And then the sidekick to that is fail faster. Because the faster that you fail, it's inevitable. It's a part of everything. The faster that you fail, the sooner you figure out how to do it right. And so
Mhm.
let's not pretend like we're going to live in this world where we're never going to experience heartache, we're never going to experience setbacks. Life is hard. Life
Mhm.
is life is really hard sometimes, and failure is a part of it. And so I want to embrace failure and say, okay, this is actually serving me if I let it. It's helping me if I choose to grow from it.
So do you have a website? Can you tell people about your website and other ways to get a hold of you? I will add that to the description so people can click on it.
Yeah, so you can find the book on Amazon. You can
Hmm.
just type in You'll Never Change, or you can go to my website, you'llneverchange.com. If you want to find me on social media, I'm at Who is Nate Dukes.
Okay. So what's coming up in the future? What you got planned?
Yeah, so one of the cool things I get to do now is I get to travel to different rehab facilities, different
Oh, okay.
conferences, different people who are ready to make some changes in their life. And I get to share my message and talk to them and really inspire, but also give them practical steps to change. And so what I get to do is I go to these events and these rehab facilities. And I'm actually able to give this book away to them for free. And the
Oh,
way that
wow.
I do that is through the Pay It Forward initiative that I've created, where you can partner with me. You can buy a book at a discounted rate for somebody that you've never met before. And when I give these books away, it's so cool because I say this is not a gift from me. This is from someone who's never met you, but who believes in you. They believe in your story, and you actually get to be a part of somebody else's comeback story. And so if you'd like to partner with me, you can go to you'llneverchange.com/pay it forward.
My buddy Brad, I was telling you about, one thing that he told me: to become a success, sometimes you have to just give stuff away.
Whew.
And I thought, that's crazy. He says he had joined a website where people would offer services or whatever for free. So he got on there. He posted that he would do your architectural drawings for free.
Wow.
I'm like, oh my God, dude, you know, all that time and everything, that's worth a lot of money. He had somebody get on there. He asked for him to do his sketches for him. He did it. The guy loved it. He ended up getting a multi-million-dollar deal out of it.
That's so powerful, man. That's
And
so powerful.
just by giving it away. That you know, you hear these stories and you think, how in the world? But I mean, it happens. You just have to be willing. You have to be willing to do something different, because you do the same thing over and over again. You know as well as I do, that's the definition of crazy. Is you're doing the
Absolutely.
same things expecting a different outcome. Your way's not always the right way.
Well, and I found that if I can help other people get what they want in life,
Mm-hmm.
it's so interesting that I find I get everything that I need.
Yeah.
And
Go
so
ahead.
I'm just more interested in helping other people achieve a level of success that they're chasing. And along the way, I get the side runoff blessing of that too.
Amazing. Well, we're going to end it there. I appreciate you coming on, man. I really do. We're going to, like I said, share all of your links and everything for everyone. And I encourage people to go to the website, take some of this advice, get the book, read it, apply it to your life. If you want to change, today is the day to do it.
Yeah, thank you so much for letting me be on the show. It's
Of course.
incredible. I'm very honored, and I can't wait to hear the stories that come from this conversation.
Well, thank you, and thank you to everyone that watches us or listens to us. We appreciate your support. And until the next one, take care.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network